Afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and to speak to all of you on a thing that I take quite personally, and that's the education of midwives in South Africa, or the non-education of midwives in South Africa. So the talk is entitled, Are We Producing Midwives for Before the Floods? I am a product of what is called the R425 program, the comprehensive 4-year nursing midwifery program that was introduced about 30 years ago by the South African Nursing Council. Now, the idea behind it was that the products of this program could then be placed anywhere in the South African healthcare system. So apparently I'm also a psychiatric nurse. Apparently I'm also a community health nurse. I'm also a registered general nurse, according to them. But I am a midwife by heart. And after 6 months of theoretical training as a midwife in South Africa, I was considered one, but it did not prepare me for the world out there as a midwife. And having worked in the primary maternity care setting for about 3 years, I decided I needed to know more. And then went and did the Advanced Midwifery program at the University of Cape Town. And after that 2 years of training, did I consider myself a midwife. Only then things made sense. Now the problem with the way the program or the undergraduate or the basic programs are structured is that even the midwifery component is based on an illness model. And the curriculum is primarily aimed at pregnancy and labor surveillance rather than promoting the normality of pregnancy and childbirth. So it lacks the finer philosophies and passions that are required of a midwife. And the students, even up until today, I mean, I was one of them back then, that you go to work because you're driven by the practical tasks in the logbook that needed to be completed. And at the end of that 6 months, you still completely missed what midwifery was all about. And as I started engaging with the women in Hanover Park, Heideveld, Mitchell's Plain, Retreat, because those are the communities from which I emanate, there was something seriously lacking in what I could offer them. I could complete a partograph, I could do an abdominal palpation, I could do a VE quite well, I could write notes very well. But something was missing, and that is that concept of compassion. And I know, Emma, is it you that asked, can it be taught? Yeah, can it be taught? I don't know. I think it needs to be there already, and it comes from your own experiences in life, and whether you were exposed to it, whether you could recognize it, even as a child. And then this is what started me on the advanced midwifery journey, where I started to reflect and think about what I was doing, thinking about what I was thinking, and what it meant for the women that depended on us and me to receive the care that they needed. The other issue around midwifery education in South Africa is that it is not uncommon to be taught by people who have very limited midwifery experience, that end up in these training institutions and have not had any clinical client contact for years, but yet they are teachers. My own experience was the person who taught me midwifery when I was training was a psychiatric nurse. And some of the others, she didn't tarnish the discipline for me. She came with some passion but she couldn't draw on any experience except for her basic training. But she brought such passion to the subject for me that I thought this is what I wanted to do, despite her being a psychiatric nurse. And the problem persists because in our higher education institutions, by virtue of the fact that you registered to practice, you are now deemed suitable or qualified enough to teach any discipline. And we all know that this is absolute hogwash. This is perpetuated by occasional operators being employed as sessional, whatever, mentors. These are people who worked in occupational health for so many years and now want more, or in the wards for so many years, and they just want some normal 9-to-5 kind of job, who have no clue about a lot of the issues that we face in modern midwifery practice. The assessment of these students is also a big problem because their theoretical exams, if they don't regurgitate verbatim things from outdated textbooks, they're less likely to pass. There's no independent thought, there's no critical or independent thinking, and what they are effectively producing are obstetric nurses. They're not midwives. So we have a serious problem because people aren't being taught to reason and make decisions and so on. Now, across the globe, it's been recognized that in order to be considered a skilled birth attendant, which is what we're supposed to be in the global context, there are 7 signal functions that, as midwives, we should be able to do. And I just want to make reference to 2 particular signal functions, one being the manual removal of a placenta, which is life-saving, the other being assisted delivery with a vacuum. Okay. Now, in South Africa, we have legislation that inhibits, that are stumbling blocks to these interventions. Because if you go to a place like Malawi, for instance, where they have midwife technicians or para-midwives, these people have a broader scope of practice after 2 years of training as midwives in order to save lives. So in South Africa, we haven't come to the party with equipping our midwives to deal with the problems that our women face on a daily basis. Professor Falk has mentioned earlier this morning, 1,500 women die every year in South Africa. HIV being one of them, the drivers of that, but the other one is obstetric hemorrhage. And the clinical astuteness of the midwives, that is so important because we're having to go to a place where we now have to lead midwives to think, like the maternity early warning system. We're forcing them to actually do observations and make decisions based on what this form tells them to do, rather than using their common sense, clinical knowledge, insights, and experience to provide the care that the woman needs. So I'm not sure if there are any South African Nursing Council representatives here, but there's loads of work to be done. We are being hamstrung by the law in this country. And the argument that I make, people say, no, but the law is there to protect you and the law is there for good reason and so on. I said, well, so was the Group Areas Act. It was also a law. Yeah? But things had to change and we're there now. It needs to happen. And the people that come out of our training institutions these days have no clue about the public health implication, or at least the maternal and newborn public health issues that exist. Because I can't understand, after, 15 years of the confidential inquiries into maternal deaths in our country, that midwives coming from the HEIs have no clue about the Saving Mothers report. They've not encountered it in their training. So what's going on? The graduates have no clue about the philosophy of midwifery. I only learned that 3 years after I qualified. So in essence, what we are producing is registered professional nurses with midwifery, not midwives, after the 4-year basic program. And only after they've done advanced midwifery would I think, can they be deemed midwives? Because then the philosophies are learned. Then the things like compassion are addressed. The underpinnings, the theoretical underpinnings of what we do, though, only then are these things learned. And the advanced programs that we have I'm not sure that they're producing advanced practice midwives at all, because only then, as I said, would you be considered a basic midwives after some advanced training. And the other problem is that after this, they go back to their places of work, and it's business as usual. They don't do anything differently. The women aren't treated any differently, right? No decision-making is evident. They're still relying on medical thinking and inputs in order to make decisions about care, and losing sight of what they're there for. So, in closing, I would like to say that we need to make sure that the South African Nursing Council is held to account, because what they are wanting to produce is not what the women of this country need. And as a group, and as the societies that we belong to and so on, there's loads, that we can do in order just to start poking. We've been poking for a while now with the South African Society of Midwives in South Africa, but there's some very big, thick lead wall somewhere in Pretoria at the South African Nursing Council. So civil society needs to come, the professional bodies need to come, the higher education institutions should start questioning what it is that they are doing, and we need to make right what is very, very wrong. Thank you.